Let's move on to Amanda's question. She says, should I slow my 401k contributions down to the employer match to refill my emergency fund, or take longer to refill my emergency fund?
Yeah, this is such a hard one, Amanda, because I need more information, right? Here's what I'd love to know, Amanda, if you were sitting across from me. Okay, what are your monthly living expenses? What's it cost for you to run the house? And let's say they say, it costs $3,000 a month to do everything we want to do. Okay, great. Well, if it's $3,000 a month, then I know you need $3,000 a month, somewhere between 3 to 6 months of living expenses, somewhere to have a fully funded emergency fund. Well, it's very different if your emergency fund is at 1 month of expenses versus if your emergency fund is at 4 months of expenses. I would argue from a risk standpoint, those two situations are not equal, because if you're someone who is on that low end to where you're like down to like the very nitty gritty and you're like paycheck to paycheck trying to make the ends meet, I think you got to get real uncomfortable and start building up that emergency fund and get that emergency fund built up and get that emergency fund built up. But if you already have 3 months, 4 months of emergency expenses in place, and you feel reasonably secure that your employment's going to be there, and you can do both. I can still build up my emergency fund, but I can still put money into my 401k. I don't think that it's crazy to go in that direction. Now, in your opinion, Brian, do you think that's too aggressive? Like, is it too aggressive to not just jump back and say, you know what? Nope, 6 months. You got to have 6 months, and you can't do anything else until you do 6 months.
No, I think it has to be nuanced, but I do want to make sure I give a really quick, succinct, because I trust and I respect the FOO. I mean, the Financial Order of Operations is road and weather tested in the fact that, and Amanda, you catch it. You understand. You're looking at this right, and the fact that this is free money. You've got to get the employer's free match. But then you didn't give us the variables that Bo was talking about. Do you have high interest debt? Because it's okay. After you get the free money from your employer, go hit and attack that high interest debt if you have any of that. But then you see step 4, before we can start loading up the 401k more, we are hitting the emergency reserves. And I think if you're somewhere between 0 and 3 months, do not skip this step. This is why it's so important. And I'm glad you're asking the question, Amanda. But Bo is right. Once you get at least that minimum 3 months and you feel like you don't have a lot of risk in some of the other components, because that's what I'm trying to keep you from. If you lose your job, if you have some of these things that happen that could become somewhat catastrophic, you don't have the big oopsie that runs your financial life into the ditch. So the 3 to 6 months of the emergency reserves is where you're going to find some grace or nuance where you can potentially still keep investing into the Roth HSAs within your 401k or employer. And then, of course, step 6 is maxing out the retirement, but don't skip the step. Do the homework to figure out, as Bo suggested, living expenses, and then what are the true risk of me losing my job, losing my ability to cover my bills, because that's going to have a lot of impact on, is it your emergency reserves 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it even beyond that if I'm about to cross into retirement?
And Brian, I don't want to belabor this point, but I think it's worth mentioning, right? When things are good, we feel like things are great, and we feel like things will never be bad again. You know, when you're flush, it's never as good as it seems, and when you're bust, it never feels like you'll be up again, right? Like, that's the idea. I feel like a lot of times when people's emergency fund gets down, they say, you know, I'm going to be okay. Things are going to be okay. I'm thinking about the example you shared. You know what? Okay, it's okay if my emergency fund is lean because I have home equity, or I have this other option, or I have this other option. Keep in mind that your emergency fund is there for emergencies. It's there for the things that you don't know are going to happen, that you cannot see coming. So don't get an over sense of confidence around, oh, well, I'll probably be okay. Because I think when we see people who are in fantastic financial situations, they get themselves in a pickle, it's because they did not pay true respect to where risk in their financial life lies.
Well, it's your oxygen.
It is
your oxygen, and we all take it for granted until you're underwater. And by the way, when you hit a bad economy like we've been, where you start seeing unemployment increasing, you start seeing tried and true businesses in the economy are actually starting to lay off big chunks of people, really good people. It's not like these people got laid off because they weren't good at their job. These are reduction in force that reflect the economic environment we're in. You do not want to be underwater thinking you're in a really comfortable situation, and then you come up and realize somebody put a lid on it.
Yep.
Because that's the thing I always think about. Say you're going snorkeling. We're all fine when we can come up and down as much as we want, but if you're snorkeling and you decide you're going to go inside the ship that's down under the water, you better, hey, I might need a tank in my back to actually go. Instead of snorkeling, I need to be scuba diving because I'm actually going into an enclosed room and it's changing the rules. Look at your finances the same way. We all take it for granted. We can bob up and down, but no, I'm telling you, cash, liquidity is your oxygen for your financial life, because I have been the knucklehead that thought my home equity, my 6 figures of home equity, who needs cash? Cash is trash. And then they changed the sheet music. The everything changed around us. The bank sent me the letter saying, you know what, that cash or that home equity you thought you had, just kidding, it's donezo. Don't write any more checks. Don't use that debit card. They took it away from me. Fortunately, I made it on the other side, and now I'm sounding the trumpet telling everybody, do not disrespect the value of having liquidity in cash, because, by the way, it also is a tremendous wealth builder. Ask Warren Buffett, ask me and Bo. But typically, you can pick up some outstanding assets when everybody else has misplayed how much cash they should have on hand.